Now the next one is gonna take us just a little bit longer to put together. So this one, what we're going to do is make a Quarry Arctic salmon taco. And so the first thing that we have to do is you need to start with some very cold salmon fillet that's already been, the skin is removed, and it's already been cut into strips. So you can see that, pretty simple. I have a paper bag, and you're gonna think of this almost like a fish stick because of the way that I put this together. So I'm taking a paper bag, and I've got some panko breadcrumbs that I've lightly seasoned. And then I'm going to use, now this is a seaweed sprinkle, but you could also just use a table seaweed if you wanted to, or even just grind up some of that seaweed that we had already used. And I'm going to use it to season the breadcrumbs. And then, just like the old shake and bake recipes, I don't know for any of you that remember that, but there used to be shake and bake chicken. What I'm going to do is just roll the bag and shake up that salmon just to get it lightly coated. Now you'll have to do this in batches if you're making a lot of them, but you can see how it got coated in the breadcrumbs. Now in the meantime, I've started to heat up some oil, so come on over to the cooktop. We want to make sure that this oil is really smoking because we want to get this fried and brown. Now the fish is going to cook pretty quickly. So I'm going to just very gently add it to the pan. Don't drop it in because it's nice and hot and you will get burned. We're just going to add it in, and we don't want to overcrowd the pan. The trick is to make sure that you've got each piece spread apart so that it cooks very, very quickly and gets crispy. And you can see how fast this comes together. It'll just take one more second. So turn off the stove. And in the time it takes for that other side to brown, it'll actually be completely finished and cooked through. I'm going to take these out. You can see that little bit of seaweed on the top has gotten so nice and crisp. And those are actually done. Now, after you get done doing these, and this recipe makes about 8 tacos, then what I'm going to do is refresh the tortillas. I don't know how many of you have used the cooktop to cook directly on. It's not generally very messy. Things don't really stick to it, but I'm going to take my tortilla and I'm actually going to put it right onto the cooktop. And what this does, especially if you've got relatively fresh tortillas, is it'll actually start to brown. Do you see? And I love the flavor of the oils and the corn starting to come out. It really gives it like a little bit of a lift while it steams it. So I want to make sure that I get some color because that caramelization is really delicious. And I'm just going to lightly cook the other side. And then we'll go over and we're going to make a kelp aioli. So you can see that? That's finished as it starts to fluff up. So now let's take this back to the cutting board and we're going to make a kelp aioli to go with this. Kind of our take on a tartar sauce, but we really have Lisa Scally from Ocean's Balance to thank for this because not only did she make this delicious kelp puree with the lemon juice, but she's also the one that suggested that we sort of taco night-ify it in order for it to go with our tacos. So the first thing that has happened already is that we have taken some egg and Dijon mustard as well as a little bit of oil and we've slowly pureed it so that it gets nice and thick. You can see how it really ends up being the thickness of a homemade aioli. Now what I'm going to do with it next is I'm going to add some of our kelp puree to this and some lime juice. This is what's really going to make it. You could add a little bit of chili powder to it if you wanted, but this is really what's going to make it great on these tacos. I'm just going to stir it a little bit. You can see how we end up with just a light kind of a crema from this that has that kelp in it. It's just finishing up that kelp puree. Now, the next thing is I also have a little bit of slaw, and some microgreens. And you can use any type of slaw that you want. So if you want to buy a slaw in the grocery store, or you want to quickly maybe toss one with our little bit of this kelp aioli, you can do whatever you would like. But I want to show you how lovely these come together. So the first thing I'm going to do is build the taco by putting in some of our slaw, and then 1 piece of our Quarry Arctic salmon. And I think you all have heard me talk about this, but what a great combination of aquaculture. We've got the kelp, which is this regenerative aquaculture, which if you don't know what that means, it's actually something that's going to bring the oceans more renewal. It sequesters carbon. It actually sequesters more carbon than planting trees on land. So we can start to get global warming down by planting more seaweed, a great part of aquaculture. And then we also have this Quarry Arctic salmon, which is another great way to bring a sustainable fish to your diet. They actually farm up in the Arctic Circle, a 3rd generation family farmer producing best-in-class Atlantic salmon. Look at that. We'll put a little bit of that aioli over it. And then I'm gonna make 1 more, and I'm just kind of lightly pushing it together. And then I've got a little bit of the slaw again, topped with that last piece of salmon, and then our aioli. Now for me, I like to finish it with a little bit of microgreens. These are cilantro microgreens. So if you can't find those, just use cilantro leaves and remove the stem. And then we've got a little bit of lime juice. So you can see we've got all of the great fixings for a beautiful pantry that's filled with items from the sea, taking our traditional tacos and making them something that not only is more nutritious and delicious, but also helps us feed the planet.